It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Look, Cartoon Network had a bit of a type in the early 10s. That type being watching a romantic dumpster fire fail to hold hands for 10 seasons, while a short king was getting some in the background. It worked for Rigby, and judging by the evidence, it was definitely working for Jake. Jake is a talking dog who can shapeshift thanks to being the bastard son of an alien who impregnated his father's head. Just stick with me. Jake, along with his adopted brother Finn, explore the land of Ooo, having adventures, fuck-ups, and all sorts of shenanigans, with Adventure Time being mainly the story of Finn maturing into an adult, with Jake being the older brother giving advice and helping Finn just make it through the story. Some of it is profound, some of it is awful, but he's technically 40 with no job and 5 kids, so Finn can at least learn from some of his fuck-ups, with the baby mama being Lady Rainicorn, a rainbow unicorn girl who speaks almost exclusively in Korean. And if you're wondering, yes, this is the kinkiest couple I've ever talked about.
You can phase people into your body?
당연하지. 난 제이크랑 항상 한 몸이 되는데.
What? Here's the sitch. Finn's love life is a slow motion train wreck, with the only positive being the fire and that he learned his lesson in the end. Finn fumbled the bag so hard, it made atheists start praying. In contrast, we got Jake, who outside of hitting it and not quitting it, is just in a functional relationship. They don't have any of that drama people will sob write comments about how this is them. Lady and Jake are kinda just in a normal ass relationship. Jake dicks around with Finn all day, then he gives it to Lady at night. They have picnics, they play the viola, not the violin or guitar, a viola, which is just the violin's chunkier cousin, and if you listen to the lies in the comments, it apparently has a different sound. But just know that the violin is high class, which is too good for Jake's broke ass, so he plays a viola instead. Now, the story about how these two got together is never told to us. I can only assume Jake came in with a pickup line and laughed at his own jokes so hard he passed out and woke up in her bed, because they're both a little bit freaky like that, which is just the beauty of Americans being one language idiots. Because if the parents don't know what the horse is saying, it'll take way longer to complain about it. Like every Rainicorn episode has some innuendo getting dropped about them doing kinky stuff, and I'm all about it. Whether it's running through the farmer's fields naked, aka they're normal, or telling his little brother how they merge all the time, this girl is not shy about letting other people know that she gets it in, and honestly, good for her. The language is a bit of a hurdle though for us, the audience, because besides context clues, we really have no fucking idea what this horse is saying, which in my experience is probably for the best, as I've never met a talking horse that I didn't hate, except for this one. She's just alright. But Lady really does have a bit of a chewy problem, where besides that one episode, we just have to rely on what other people say to figure out what she said, removing the nuance of how she said it. The girl will go off about nightmares where she gets eaten by zombies while her family watches, and all we get is this.
I suppose that's true.
It makes things a little difficult in getting to know her, other than she's Jake's girlfriend, which I'm kind of fine with, to be honest. This isn't an Eileen situation where she's a great character on her own who loves her man-child. Lady isn't part of the main cast. She's like a B or C tier. You'll like it when she shows up, but she isn't gonna be really too many people's favorite character. Instead, she's playing an important off-screen role as Jake's girlfriend, who he can spend time with whenever Finn needs to be alone to ruin his own damn life. It's casual and works for what both of them are looking for. They hang out every day at 4, they eat, they play music, then go on dates whenever it suits them. It's not a lot, but they're content, which is probably the best way to describe both of them. Lady and Jake aren't seeing other people, but they've got no interest in getting married. They're pretty much that one aunt or uncle your mom talks shit about for dating the same person for 15 years, even though she's the one going on 2 divorces. They're just comfortable with how things are, so like, why question it? They may live in separate houses, but they're still in each other's lives, and we're lucky enough to find something that works for them. And just one last Rigby and Eileen comparison. Eileen made Rigby a better man by being on top of him, prompting Rigby to get his shit together so that he can date her. Jake and Lady have none of that character development, as they don't need any. These two were exactly who they wanted to be when they met, and are exactly what the other wanted.
Oh, sweet potato, I love you because you're an idiot. You make me feel like a genius.
Which, okay, let's talk about this apparent hot take. Jake is an idiot. He's wise, but he's still an idiot. You don't need to be a genius to make your way into Nirvana. or give advice to a 12-year-old. I'm not saying that Jake doesn't have his profound moments, but this is the same guy who killed himself because people told him to.
I'll never fall victim to peer pressure again.
No, Jake!
Actually, I'll do anything you guys want if you say my name 3 times.
Now, this might be too much nuance for some people on the internet to handle, but being wise doesn't guarantee intelligence, just like how degrees don't guarantee you getting a job. Because really, it's all about that experience. Old people aren't automatically smarter than most people, and as a former retail slave, I've got the receipts to prove it. They've just been around the block enough times to recognize when a pink flag is really a red one. Jake is a magical dog, but he's still living on dog years, which isn't 1 equals 7. It's really closer to 15 the first, 9 in their second, and then you don't want to know for the rest. Meaning Jake is mentally way past his 30s, and he's written like he's had all that life experience. When Finn was still figuring out how to potty train, Jake was robbing banks, getting addicted to card games, and living that short life to the fullest. He just never comes off as old because he's an idiot with 0 impulse control, making him just as childish as Finn. That said, he is a great source of wisdom, as he's got that life experience to help guide Finn even if he's still living with his kid brother and has 0 pullout game. What Jake really excels at is living in the moment. He's never bogged down by worries about things he can't control. While he'll scream and be racist about Marceline because he heard bad things about vampires, but that's just him being gullible and not him freaking out about all the vampires in the world that might be out to get him. He's just zen. He follows his gut, lives in the moment, and does his best, which honestly is a better way of living than 99% of us, so you really can't judge.
How'd I even get up here?
You blacked out after laughing so hard at your own jokes.
Still an idiot though, and that's what his girl likes about him. She likes the fact that he's a bit of a dummy. And for Lei's personality, she's a bit harder to read. Not just because she speaks only in Korean, but it's really because she's not in the story that much. She's in the first episode where she's playing 7 Minutes of Heaven with Jake, a game invented by old people who didn't have sexting. And her making out with Jake is like, okay, they're together. That's kind of about all we learn. And in her first actual episode where she is a main character, we kind of see her as, oh, Jake's girlfriend seems nice, but Jake is missing out on Finn and Lady time, so he has to force them together, only for the dog to become the third wheel, as thanks to a translator, Finn can finally understand her, causing Jake to sulk, thinking that Finn is stealing his girl, so he grabs Tiffany to make them jealous. Then they talk, and it's immediately fine. And that's kind of it. Like, she seems nice, she's willing to throw down, she and Jake seem to share a lot of the same interests, but nothing's ever like streamed out to me like, oh, this is Lady. She's kind of just the girlfriend. And that really isn't helped by the rest of the show, as the very next episode that we get with her isn't about Lady. It's about Jake dealing with her parents, who might be racist against dogs. He's not worried too much about that though.
It could happen!
Ah! I'm a moron!
Tilly is, and pretends to be a Rainicorn with no endgame in mind, letting the in-laws abuse Finn because he thinks he's a pervert, which is a pretty big red flag in itself, but it's funny, so I'll allow it. Jake drew the line at murder, so good to know he at least has some standards. Lady pops in at the end, everyone's cool, and turns out Lady's parents just have a dog fetish, which was what was freaking her out. So it runs in the family. Yeah, those episodes are kind of Lady's role in the show in a nutshell. She personally isn't too involved. Instead, her presence instigates what the boys have to deal with. Lady has got her house in order, while Jake is losing his mind over something dumb or another. Her roles after this are to kind of be an extension of Jake or get some good couple comedy out of it. When the zombie apocalypse happens, she lets her zombie boo out of the cage and tells him she wanted him to bite her after it's over. Because Lady is a bit of a freak and is just Jake's girlfriend most of the time, which I'm fine with. Jake and Lady isn't an Eminem's situation, where the female's whole personality is relegated to revolve around her man, when they're both in the main cast. Now that sentence might cause some people's heads to explode as because I'm being a hypocrite, but media is a case-by-case basis. Lady isn't in the show that much. She's not a main character, and with her gimmick being speaking almost exclusively in Korean, you never think that she's gonna play this major role in the story. So I'm cool with her not being utilized too much, so long as when she's in the show, it's entertaining.
I'm pregnant!
I'm puppies?
Okay, that shocked the hell out of me when I first saw it. Like, I almost dropped my ice cream bowl I could not believe it. Like, even when she started, I was like, oh, what, she's gonna say she's pregnant? Then she did, and I was just stunned. But honestly, looking back on it, I really shouldn't have been so surprised, as Jake going balls deep is actually pretty well foreshadowed. From Jake telling Finn to stay away from tier 15, from the constant sex jokes hidden in Lady's dialogue. We knew these two were bang, but it always felt like something just for the older kids who had the internet. We didn't know that those actions would have consequences, but it turns out being hung and dumb finally bit Jake in the ass, because he's got kids on the way, and this changed the ship shockingly little. We see Lady pregnant later on, but then we ignore them to go watch Finn hang out with squirrels. Sorry if you're invested in this ship, because I think they really are the garnish to Jake's role in Adventure Time. But I do appreciate how it never comes off as being just an obligation. Adventure Time is one of those shows where we only really see a select few stories from the Land of Ooo. Jake and Finn are always doing stuff like this. Jake is always hanging out with Lady. It's just not something the story focuses on, as it's mostly just wholesome. Then the puppies show up, and suddenly Jake's kids are older than he is.
Charlie, TV, Viola, Kim Kil-wan, and this sweet little lady is Jake Jr.
Several days later.
They're basically like older than me already.
One episode. We get one episode of Jake being a dad before the write us out of the situation genetics kick in. I'm not saying this was lazy, but I am saying if you're invested in Jake being a dad, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. Because the way this episode turned out, Jake moves in to live with his pups, and they leave him to go get cigarettes, with Jake having wasted his kid's whole 5-day childhood by trying to be his mother. He thought his sleeping kids were dead, walking them all on a leash, and just being your average Disney dad before they get bodied. The whole time, Lady is telling Jake to calm the F down, as she knows what they're really capable of.
Oh, what the?
Jake, of course, learns his lesson about not being so overprotective, but by that point, they're basically self-sufficient.
Hey guys, I'm back.
And that's all, folks. The man wasted his kid's entire childhood, and he can never get those hours back. So he's living with his brother again, and we're back to our regularly scheduled Adventure Time. Now, you can either be happy that the kids didn't change the show too much, or you can appreciate the fantasy of a 7-day fatherhood. In either case, you have to be like Jake and just accept it, because everything is fine now. Jake's fine.
Sometimes I wonder if maybe I haven't been the best dad. Maybe I blew it.
Now, this is kind of where the pony dog train pulls into the irrelevant station. Because Lady and Jake, they're solid. But after pregnant and having kids, there was just very little that was going to be done with this couple. Like, they're doing normal couple shit, and no one wants to hear about other people being happy. So instead, whenever we get something Jake related, it's either about him being an alien bastard or his relationship to his kids. To the writers, this was basically the Toy Story meme of Andy dropping Woody now that he has a new toy, which probably the right call, as at this point I was way more interested in these colorful abominations than the nothing Lady had going on. Look, I love these two together. They overcame the language barrier, but this was always a relationship that worked best in short bursts, which is a lesson you have to accept sometimes. Being the focus all the time usually isn't a good thing. I love me some Finn and Flame Princess, but if they were in every episode together, I feel like I would just find more reasons to hate than I would to like them. Miraculous. Sometimes couples are just functional and healthy, and they don't define the other person's life. To me, Jake and Lady were perfectly fine as they were. They weren't the center of attention. Lady got a little bit shafted in how she was always kinda not there, but for what the show was going for, I enjoyed them. I liked having this one sane relationship in just a sea of overcomplicated drama. That's what I wanted them for, and that's what they delivered. I think they could have given Lady just a little bit more, but it gave us the pups, so I'm content. And even though I could end the video here, I still want to talk about some of the other things that they did with them. Starting with the mother of all this drama, Lady, because it turns out after 8 seasons, they decide to give her a backstory, because her coming here from the crystal dimension is a feat, so it must be explained. Back in the day, Lady had a boyfriend, Not Jake, this hipster angry counterculture rebel guy who'd rather starve because of some moral victory than feed himself and his girlfriend, always ranting about dog oppression and doing basically nothing except minor acts of terrorism, with Lady standing by him through all of it. Do we ever explain why she stands by him? Not really. Do they explain what does she see in him? Not really. So we're left to make up our own assumptions, which for me the answer is obvious that the dick was really just that good. So eventually Lady did have to leave the asshole named Lee, but this only came not because she was tired of him, but because he decided to commit an actual act of terrorism that could cause a war. Because, yeah, it's really hard to say because she is standing by him while he's doing shitty things, and she's just kind of being a nice, polite waifu. This whole backstory is really about making fun of what a douche Lee is, then giving us more context for Lady. She's a good person, she dates some dummies, but we already knew that. So moving on from that, let's talk about the kids. Because I don't know what it is about it, but whenever I see characters I like, I'm always like, okay, that's good, that's cool. What the fuck are their kids like? Because the kids are always just the most fascinating bunch of fucked up people. Now for starters, Jake Jr., or as everyone else calls her, oh shit, that's Mabel.
Dad, the manual's a bunch of junk! Just give us a chance.
Jake Jr. is the kid that takes the most after Jake. She's troublesome, she's mischievous, and she's just kind of relaxed, enjoying life. Enjoying life a little bit too much as she decides, I'm going to aspire to be like my dad, not this current old man dad. She wants to be like the criminal she heard that he was back in the day. And to prove herself to him, she kidnaps herself, tricks Jake into assembling his old crew, before double-crossing him to get away with the goods. It's short, it's brief, Jake and JJ have a nice warming conversation, but then she kind of just flitters away, disappears. Isn't in the show that much, except to commit more crimes like verbal murder.
No, Dad's a wonderful cook.
Viola, when's the last time you even heard from Dad?
This is Viola. Viola is the creative one in the family, which is a fancy way of saying broke. She's got big dreams of being an actress. Not the TV kinds, the one that you don't get respect for. Yeah, that one. Being a theater kid is rough, as when she's not dealing with her abusive directors, she's pining for her father's approval because of course the kid who's into musicals is a daddy's girl. Lying out being the lead, she eventually takes what's hers when she does us all a favor by teleporting away the worst character in the show.
Are you really here, or are you like an eye floater?
Giving her the big performance before coming clean to her father that she was just a tech person, because his opinion meant so much to her that she was willing to lie about it. By the way, Jake loves her, because even though he is absent, he is very much supportive. But as JJ expertly point out, Viola really doesn't know Jake. And it's not just her. Like, again, Jake knew these kids for like 7 days.
Yeah, I love Dad and everything, but he's only ever met me twice.
He was not in their lives a whole lot. They rapidly aged, slowed down, and are now all young adults living their own life, which creates kind of a disconnect as Jake's kind of left wondering, was that it? And the pups are just like, yeah, he's our dad, we love him. They don't really know him though outside of him being flighty, which a local tall guy takes much offense to.
Happy birthday, Kim Kil-won!
Birthdays are old business.
Kim Kil-won is an asshole. Wrong one. The man has his life together, but he's still a dick. Tired of his dad slacking, he decides to be the parent his dad never was, by buying the treehouse and making his son pay rent. Kim is doing this to force his dad to grow up and get a real job. But after bailing him out of jail and getting a gift, he decides he can't make his dad be anything. They just gotta let him live his life, even if it isn't to his standard of adulthood, because it's not his place to change Jake. I actually like Kim the most out of all the pups, as he is the most three-dimensional. Like, I get him. Kim worked hard, got rich, married his bear, then had a kid. When he looks at his life and the happiness it's brought him, he assumes everyone else just needs to get with the program, not realizing that everyone is built like him, that people want different things. Making his whole arc about him coming to understand and accept that his dad is his dad, because he still loves the man. He just doesn't agree with his lifestyle. When he needs him, Jake is still there. Kim reaches out to Jake telling him like, hey, my daughter Bronwyn is acting out, and he's having Jake talk to her because she's a free spirit and will probably listen to her hippie grandpa over her square of a dad, only for him to have that conversation after Jake nearly dies again. And we just get like a good father-daughter moment. And he really is like the most layered of all of Jake's kids. Speaking of layers, let's talk Charlie. Charlie is a bit of a weird one. She's mischievous, but mostly keeps to herself. She's just doing her own thing. She really likes tarot cards. With her one and only episode about her getting sucked into her dad's old obsession of card wars.
What? No! Not today! No card war!
Which she agrees to in exchange for a finger bone. Dipping after the game, she uses the bone to look into her future, where she gets to see the ups and downs of her life before gaining acceptance in old age, merging with that older version to gain perspective, allowing her to go help her dad deal with his own past. I wish I could say more about her, but this is one of those more heavy Adventure Time episodes. Let's give you this somber lesson rather than developing Charlie. She does seem chill though, bit of a slob, which leaves us with the last, and I don't want to say least, TV.
Mom, give me some money.
일자리 찾아.
He hasn't figured out his life yet, and is still living with his mom. He's the type of guy who would lie and say he does have a job, but I don't think a Reddit mod counts. TV isn't a leech, but he is definitely a parasite. When the man finds a fancy box in the house, his first thought is to sell it. Which, pretty scummy behavior, I won't lie. TV does have good moments though. I do like having the representation for lost in their 20s adults. Not everyone hits their life running, and figuring herself out is totally fine. But he quickly becomes a running joke of being the kid who's still living with his mother. He ends up becoming a detective though, so I guess it all worked out in the end. And that's kind of just it for the pups. Everyone got a career, Charlie's son became a magical dictator for Charmy and Beth to fight. Overall, I do like Lady and Jake. I like them together. I like them apart. Lady just doesn't have much of a spotlight on her, but in a show that's filled with as much chaotic shipping nonsense as this, having one relationship be loving and uncomplicated is a must.
What the man?
Oh yeah, that was super fucking weird. Right, that's it. Thank you all for watching. I'll be moving on to a different show next week, so subscribe and get notified for that. Like and share the video, comment on what you liked about Jake and Lady, and for my non sequitur ending this week, I'll be